Welcome to the Two Fun Guys podcast. I'm your host, Brent Ruska.
I'm your co-pilot, Tony Haddad.
Today, we have Matt Holm on the podcast. Super grateful for you to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, give a little 30-second reel of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I work in real estate, all kinds, development, residential. I kind of cut my teeth with residential for the last 16 years. Last 5 years, been doing other things. As a passion play, I started a Tesla Owners Club after I was inspired by Elon and sat with him for about 9 hours 11 years ago, and thought, okay, really cool vehicle I'd just gotten, really amazing guy, and started that as a passion play. And now they've kind of intersected slightly. So I'm 52. I'm trying to just have fun all the time.
You're at the right place.
If it's not fun, I don't do it. So this was a natural fit when you guys asked me. Obviously, you know my wife. Mm-hmm. She's been working out with you guys and loving it. And I jumped in a little bit as well. But anyway, thought it'd be kind of fun to hang out with you guys and see what kind of fun we can get into.
Well, we're super excited to have you here, Matt.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm excited because Honest told me a little bit, but before real estate, you were in photography.
Yeah. And fourth grade teacher. I did for 10
really?
years. Yeah.
Wow.
So going back to that, I don't know how much she told. I didn't hear her podcast, but
she told us how you met, and we only had an hour, so we just kind of kept it just cliff notes.
Yeah. Well, my mom's family's from Australia, and my cousin, who's the same age as me, we bought a Volkswagen bus in London in '94.
That's where that energy comes from.
Cruised around. I was a dirty hippie for a couple of years living in a van.
Were you a deadhead or?
I've seen the dead, you know. Yeah. I don't know if I was a deadhead, but yeah. I mean, I've had, 3 Volkswagen vans. I love it. Cool. I love the romantic idea of a simplified life. I don't know that I have it now, but it's a lot of fun. And Volkswagen buses, there's a nostalgia there that I just love. So lived in that for a year. In the first year, I met my wife at a carnival party in February of '95.
You're how old at this point?
I was 23. She was 21.
Nice.
I think if my kids came to me at that age and started getting serious, I'd be like, slow down, put the brakes on.
So she told us that her costume was like a vampire at this party?
Yeah.
Do you know what your costume was?
So mine was not really a costume. Mine was a very cheap warm clothing I'd bought in the Czech Republic for 10 cents for these pleed, super tight around the thighs, wide bell bottoms that covered my size 12 feet, and this Russian jacket with a fur jacket. And I had a broken leg that I'd been recovering on for 6 weeks that I broke in France. And that's why I was recovering in Spain. And so by that time it had recovered enough and I was spinning and dancing on it. So I don't know what I was, some sus Eastern European half cripple guy. I don't know what I was, but somehow she spotted me, I spotted her, and we hung out and talked all night, hung out the next day. And then I went to Morocco for a bit, lost her information on a camel ride in the Sahara, no joke, can't make it up, and couldn't contact her for 4 months. And finished the loop with my cousin. We sold the bus in London, and I went back, bought a 200-pound Mini, and drove back down to Spain. And we dated for a year. So that was 29 years ago. We've been married 27 years, so kind of crazy. But
and then you guys opened a photography studio? How did that
so I came back. I started substitute teaching. I got offered a full-time teaching position. Wasn't quite enough money. I started working at a photography studio, ended up opening our own business within 2 years, grew that much, much, much bigger than the rest of our income. And we did that for 10 years. And so Anna would assist me and we'd have fun doing weddings. We'd probably do 5 to 8 a weekend. We had an exclusive contract with the Queen Mary in Long Beach and just had a blast and had great clients. It was fun. And then in '07, I was riding my bike to my 4th grade job and I had a hit and run bicycling accident and broke my neck in 3 places and I could not pick up a camera anymore. And so we had come out to Austin in '06. On a whim, bought a house in Round Rock, literally on a 3-day weekend. I'm like, by the 3rd day, I'm like, Austin's so cool. We should buy a house here, honey.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that we had left after 6 months of recovery. So it was a pretty rough time.
Do you remember the experience of being hit?
I do, yeah. The car basically went head on into me, cut into me. I was going about probably 15 or 20 miles an hour. They were going probably the same. And I flew about 20 feet and landed right on my head. Had 3 compression breaks in my neck. Broke my helmet. They peeled off and I was able to get up, made it to my job. And
with a broken neck?
With a broken neck. Literally set an appointment with a chiropractor after work to go get adjusted. I'm like, man, my neck doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So after about an hour, the shock kind of, wore off. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, my head feels like it's going to fall off. Something's not right. So I call Anna and she's like, I'm coming right now. So I walk into the emergency room and of course, I tell them what happened and they're like, well, you're walking. It can't be that bad. They palpate and, it's painful, but not crazy painful. And so they're like, well, just in case we'll do a CT, see what happens. So like 20 minutes after the CT, by the way, I'm laying down, going down to the CT and like I'm holding my head. It feels like my head's going to fall off. And I'm like, God, this is so bizarre. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. So I go back into the ER waiting and 20 minutes later they come out. They're like, don't move. There's 2 doctors coming. Your neck's broken in 3 places. We have to like put you in a halo right now. And I'm like, neck's broken? Because, you associate that with, I'm paralyzed.
Yeah.
And I did have nerve damage down my right side. But
how many days were you moving around with a broken neck?
So that was the day. It was that morning. It was a few hours later. So the shock wore off.
But you went to work. Were you photographing a wedding?
No, this was my 4th grade job.
Oh,
I was riding my bike to my 4th grade job, and that's when that happened. And so I was.
So you're teaching a class of 4th graders with a broken neck.
Correct. And kind of sitting there going, I'm like rolling my neck around slightly and I'm like.
Probably not what you should have been doing.
I don't know. Not good. Can you imagine if I gone to a chiropractor instead of going to the ER?
You?
And they're like, yeah, we'll adjust you. It'll be fine.
Lights out.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a really tough recovery. I had vertigo, didn't know if I'd be able to drive again. I mean, it was a whole long recovery. And I was 36. I'd never heard of interruption of business insurance, had no substitute for that. I had to give away all my weddings, obviously. And so, catastrophic financially, physically. But I will say, you go through something like that and it changes your perspective. And it solidified our relationship. I mean, we lost everything but this house in Austin and our marriage was stronger.
How did it change your perspective?
You appreciate, you forget it after a time. When something catastrophic happens, I think you reassess your life, what's important, puts things in focus, and then you tend to slip back into normalcy of like, I got to keep moving and hustling and growing and all that stuff. And, not that it's good to have bad things happen, but I've had, bad things happen that turned into really amazing perspectives and new growth. And so, that's probably the biggest thing is I knew that no matter what happens, my wife and I are solid. We started broke, made a couple of bucks, went broke again, and now we're doing okay again, And so there's a lot more to life than material things. It's great. I prefer having money. It's not fun. But when you truly have your health, you have everything.
I think there's something to be said for struggling with somebody. Like we've gone through a lot of struggles with our businesses and it makes you grow a lot in your relationship, whether it's a friendship or romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Because it's challenging. I imagine each day you're waking up and you're like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a kid on the way, didn't you? And you're like,
well, yes, we had a 3-year-old daughter and I managed while I was in the hospital to get my wife pregnant again. So by the time I'd recovered.
While you were in the hospisptal.
I had to have something to do. My neck was broken.
There you go, champ.
Other parts were not. So,
my guy.
So we ended up getting pregnant. And in the meantime, I'm like getting calls from all these collectors and contractors, and we had various projects going on. And, I'm taking these phone calls of just, this is going away. This is, we're, attaching this lien and we're, and so it could have been catastrophic, but I'm just like, you know what? I'm alive. This is something we're going to be able to get out the other side of. And if we have to start from scratch, that's okay. And we did, other than the home. We had a home we'd bought in 2006 on that whim of a weekend out in Austin. And we had a renter that was paying the property manager and going straight to the mortgage. So it's the only thing that we were able to keep up with because that went straight from, the property manager to the mortgage company. And so we had a soft-ish landing spot. But we got here and I think I could have made maybe 2 more mortgage payments. And so I had to work.
What did you do?
I got a real estate license while I was in the hospital because I figured, okay, we've got some place that's not going away. We're going to try Austin. I'd had some family friends say that their kids had moved to Austin and loved it. Back in 2006, that's what sparked that initial trip. And I'm like, you know what? Real estate, I've always enjoyed investing in it. I wonder what it would be like being an agent. So got my real estate license. We got here in July of 2008. And my first month, I sold 5 homes. And
wow.
And it was 2008, which was not a great time for real estate. And I'm like, okay, well, that was a fluke. I wonder what next month's going to bring. And lo and behold, I've sold over 100 homes a year since all my years in the business. My price per contract is a little bit higher, probably 10x what it used to be back in the day.
So going back to your first month in real estate, because I've worked with a lot of real estate agents and a lot of them struggle.
Yeah.
Why do you think you were able to basically blow everybody out of the water month one?
So that's a great question, and it was also timing. So 08, everything was collapsing. Nobody was selling anything, right? Everything was frozen, very similar in some ways to where we are right now because of interest rates. We don't have the foreclosure rate, but there's no absorption currently in the market. So it's really, people are like, wow, I'm struggling to make any money. My listings are sitting. My buyers are terrified, right? Very similar climate in that respect for other reasons. And my first broker made a comment that stuck, and I ran with it. He said, the big builders, the D.R. Hortons, the Pulte's, the Lennars, they're not going to pivot and all of a sudden turn into Amazon. They're going to put butts in houses. Do you know how they do that? They are going to incentivize anyone that can bring them new business. So what you're going to do is we're going to find some of these struggling neighborhoods where they have great incentives. They were paying 6 to 8% commissions to try to move their product. So I would take that commission. Well, before I had the commission, I'd made signs. It'd say margaritas and snacks, beer and hot dogs, free phone giveaway, anything to get the car to stop, balloons. When people would come in, we'd talk. Now, these were like $100,000 homes in Manor at the time. And we'd talk, and I'd serve them a margarita, and they'd be like, oh, I'm just here to get a margarita. I'm like, cool, have a margarita. And by their second margarita, they're like, are you supposed to sell me something? I'm like, well, you said you wanted a margarita. I don't know. What do you want to know about? They're like, well, we just signed a lease, and, I don't know if we have the credit, and we don't have a down payment. So we just, wanted to check them out. And I'm like, well, the builder's doing 0 down. They're paying all the closing costs. I can pay you out of your lease because I'm making bonus funds on this deal. We have a credit repair person that's sitting right here. And do you have $1? The builder will take $1 earnest money. I mean, literally any objection they had to owning. Yeah. And then I'd be like, tell me what you're paying in rent. They're like, oh, we're paying $1,100. I'm like, cool. Here's the payment. It's $1,200, but you're going to keep, an extra $4,000, $5,000 of your income at the end of the year because of tax incentives. So by the time I got done with them, and they'd had a couple margaritas, they're like, okay, what's the catch? I'm like, well, it's $1. It's 35 days. You either get the home at the end of 35 days or you don't, but you're losing $1. Do you want to do it? So by the time I got rid of every objection, and it actually happened, it just exploded. They'd tell their friends, and all of a sudden, I was kind of the go-to guy who would put on these events, drive the traffic. When the people stopped their cars, I was procuring cause. Because the on-site who worked for the builder would say, what brought you in today? Was it the builder's advertising? No, it was, I saw 900 signs down 290 and a bunch of balloons, and I saw free margaritas and hot dogs for the kids. And I'm like, okay. And so that was... that was how I started. In fact, my busiest month was the very end of the $8,000. Oh, the government was paying you $8,000 to buy a house as well. So in addition, these people got 0 down and got $8,000. So the last month of the $8,000 tax credit, on that one neighborhood, we got 36 under contract, closed 22. So it was just like boom, 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 boom. So you're asking about real estate. You need to go to the people that have the biggest pain point. I think it's the same thing right now. I'm starting to see the builders are increasing some of their commissions. They're trying to incentivize. They're doing rate buy downs. They're doing anything they can to help people get into a house. And so it's actually kind of a similar time. So if you want to get into it, specializing in new home construction, it's great for the buyer.
Yeah.
I had a client use $25,000 I negotiated for them to buy down to a 3.75 permanent 30-year fixed rate. So people are sitting around waiting at 7% interest rates for it to lower. Well, we got a 3,000 square foot house for $528,000 in Liberty Hill, and they got a 3.75 rate. It's the best of all worlds. So there's opportunity right now as buyers. Do you want to be a seller? No. I still carry quite a few listings. I've probably turned down 40, not turned down, push them down the road because we are not in a seller's market. It is a buyer's market. And so sellers, in my estimation, should wait till 26 or 27 if they want to see the next pop.
What is it that creates a buyer's market versus a seller's market? Because there's a ton of homes in our neighborhood that have been on the market for a long time, and they're good homes. And I feel like Austin is growing. So I guess, yeah, what do you see that creates a seller's market even in a bustling city or something that is expanding?
So we had about 80,000 people moving here a year. We're down to 60,000. So we still have a net migration that's very positive, which is a great metric for what I look at for our future of housing is job metrics. It's all I care about. Do we have net migration that's positive? Do we have job creation? If the answer is yes, we're good. Tech has pulled back a little bit. Google hasn't filled their tower yet, but Apple's still building 3 million square feet for 12,000 software engineers. Google still has that entire building. They're going to fill at some point. Zuckerberg backed out of 6 in Guadalupe, but, so we have probably extra office space, but, tech companies aren't going to go away. What's the backbone of the U.S. economy? What do we produce? Tech, Apple, Google, Tesla. We have some of the world's largest companies. We're very fortunate. A lot of them are based or have a large presence here, Amazon. And so I work a lot with those people. So that helps make me feel good long-term about it. And so why are we struggling when we have net migration? Where are these people going? They can buy or they can rent or they can live in a bus, right? So they're not all living in buses. They're definitely not buying. Why are they not buying? Well, they were used to, for 15, 20 years, 3 to 4% interest rates. Well, if those double, your buying power shrinks in half.
Right.
So if I could afford $1 million house, I can now afford 500,000. So now I've got champagne taste. I want the million, but I can afford 500,000. How do I make that work?
You're getting sparkling cider for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the challenge people are having. They're like, well, until I can afford what I really want, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to sideline. In addition, sellers who maybe would do a move up are like, well, my house has a 3% interest rate on it. I can either add on the pool, I can add on the extra bedroom, I can add the second story, or I can sell and then lock in at a 7% interest rate. So the sellers who would turn into buyers are hanging on to their interest rates. The buyers are coming in, sitting on their hands in 22, 23, 24, right? With no absorption. So we have a glut of inventory, but not because we're building a ton of homes. It's the opposite, as a matter of fact, because the money you're borrowing, that developers are borrowing, is much higher than it was. So they're not taking risks. They're not buying up neighborhoods or land and converting it into homes quickly. The custom builders have pulled back to about a sixth of what they were building 2 or 3 years ago. And so we have actually a shrinking future inventory, but a glut because there's no absorption. I think about it this way. If you had 10 homes in all of Austin that were for sale, but only one buyer a month, then the metrics would say we have 10 months of inventory.
Right.
Well, those 10 homes in a normal market would be gone in an hour on a Saturday. Right. So if you don't have the absorption, if those buyers are timid, which they are, they're doing the opposite of what Warren Buffett recommends. So he says, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. It sounds, everyone's heard that. If you haven't, you've just heard it. But realistically, it goes against every fiber of human psychology. Everybody bandwagons. Oh, my friend says I should jump into crypto.
Yeah, herd theory. They all want to be the same.
We're all going to jump in. You're lemmings. It's the way we are. It's everyone. I struggle against it, right? Oh man, this great new concept is already out. I want to invest in NVIDIA. Well, NVIDIA's already gone up so much. All it's going to do is bottom, right? So you're out there and buying NVIDIA right now. It's too late, right? You should be looking for the ones that are feeling pain right now, the ones that people are fearful to buy but have good underlying metrics.
All the crypto degens are mad at you right now.
Sorry. And I like crypto. I have some crypto. It's fine. Stuff I don't need to touch just sits there. If it goes up, down, I'm not worried about it. I think the same way about real estate. It's a forced savings account. You should own something of it, because if you look at the underlying metrics for Austin, we're still incredibly solid. We're at a point right now where people's buying power has shrunk and they're waiting for interest rates. So what's going to happen? Those people that are waiting in 22 and didn't buy 23, 24, it's a compressed buyer pool that would have been absorbed at any one of those years that are now sitting on their hands. They've come in at 60,000 a year. Let's say half of those were going to be buyers. So we got 30,000, 60,000, 90,000. When those rates organically on a 30-year fixed and par rate goes back down to 5.75 or whatever that tsunami is where everyone's like, oh, I can see buying something now, you're going to have a flood of multiple years of buyers get in at the same time because, once again, we're all lemmings. They're all going to do it. It's what they're waiting for.
Once one does it, the rest of them do it.
And then what's going to happen? You're going to have all the backlog of homes that people have been waiting to sell get absorbed. I think that year, which could be 25 after the election, it's whenever rates go down. I can't predict the year. It's going to be when those rates hit that magic point. You're going to have all those people get in the market. You're going to see a 5 or 10% increase that year. And the sellers will be happy, but they're not happy as they would have been in 21 when it was, 30% higher, but they're happy they get it sold. Then what happens? all the homes that weren't built over the last 3 years because developers have also puckered and decided they're not going to do anything. They take 2 years to build a house. It takes a year in the city of Austin to get permitting to build a house. Then it takes another year to build it. So you're going to have 2 years where the developers get in at the same time as the buyers because they're like, oh, buyers are buying, I better start developing. They're 2 years from delivering. So if this happens in 25, they can't deliver a house till 27. So if rates go down after the election this year, 25, we absorb. 26 and 27 is when you want to be putting your home on the market because you're going to have a squeeze that is going to be robust. And it's a simple supply and demand. We still have people moving here. They're not moving here for, a job at Taco Bell and living in a trailer. These are people that are moving here usually for tech jobs. They're going to turn into homeowners. They're just fearful right now. And so when they lose their fear, it's going to be a zoo again. And excuse me, you want to sell, in my opinion, if you can hang on to your portfolio or your home, or you can buy another one in some fashion by pulling out funds or whatever, don't sell anything till 26, 27. That's my prediction because it's going to be a bloodbath.
What's a good strategy for people living here now that are buyers or like us? Say we were trying to buy something. What is a good strategy? Wait, try to look for something. And if we look for something, what are we looking for?
Sure. Well, it depends on, number one rule is location, right? So try to make it close to where you are. I just did a seminar for Tesla employees on the East Side last weekend. And there's programs out there where these kids are making $40,000, $45,000 a year. There's 15,000 of them out of the 20,000 at Tesla right now that make enough where they can barely afford rent. They don't think they can buy. But a combined, if you had 3 roommates that you were friends with or that work at the factory, you could buy a 3 or 4 bedroom home for $450,000 to $500,000 next to Tesla within 6 minutes. Right now, they're coming in from all over. They're getting bussed in and living elsewhere where they can afford rent as a function of their income. So they're coming in from really far away. The attrition rate at Tesla is not great for newly trained people because they're doing 12-hour shifts. They're taking buses that Tesla's paying for them to go hours back to San Antonio and Killeen, where they're bringing them in from, where they can afford the $700 or $800 a month rent that they can afford that they can't find in Austin. So these kids could get together. You can put up to 4 people on a loan, and they can get a 0 down loan program or 3% if they can each come up with $5,000 each, borrow from mom and dad. Builder's going to pay 25, 30, 40,000, whatever I can negotiate to buy down the interest rate and pay all their closing costs. So they can get out for 0 or 5,000 each into a house. If they get a 4-bedroom, rent the 4th bedroom to another buddy. And then it's going to be equivalent by the time you break down. It's going to be like a $3,000, $3,200 payment. But if you put 4 people on that, divided by that, you're spending $700, $800, same as you're spending in San Antonio, but you're right next to the factory and you own equity.
So then what's the strategy later? So follow that path later on. Now there's 4 people that own this house. Is it just sell the house, split the money?
If they're going to work at Tesla for 5 years, and if we're going to see that squeeze that happens and that $450,000 house goes to $700, divide that by that profit, and at least they've paid the same equivalent amount that they were paying for rent. Mm-hmm. They're going to be able to write off their interest and property tax. So they're actually going to keep more of their money anyway. And then they'll each have $50,000 in equity as a seed to go buy their own house on their own just by living there in 3 or 4 years. So that's the plan for somebody who makes $40,000 a year. So people ask me all the time, well, I don't make enough income. I don't have enough savings. I don't have the closing costs. Whatever that is. It's one of those things. Take action. Like this is the time to take action and do it because these opportunities, I'm not going to be able to negotiate $30,000 or $40,000 in addition to pricing from a builder in 26 or 27 when they're flying off the shelf like this.
Right.
And so, the opportunity is right now when everyone's fearful and you can make the actual logical sense out of making this purchase happen. It's not rocket science. It's just connecting the dots with the right lender, the right house, and the right vehicle for the mortgage. And so it's what I do. I put the puzzle together, right? I've done 1,600 transactions. I've sold over $1 billion in real estate personally. I have a team of 10. I have operations. I've become, something, I'm creating a business. Hopefully my kids will want to work in it. I don't know. They show no interest in real estate at this point, but you never know. But trying to create something, but also still actively working in my own business with my own clients. And the opportunities I'm seeing right now are phenomenal. The challenge is there's just not as many buyers as I would like to be working with. And I'm working with probably 12 right now. Normally this time of year, I'm working with 20 or 30 that are actively in some stage of purchase because it's the time of year when people buy. So it's slower than I would like it to be, even though all I do is educate people to, I know you're scared. We can, what are you scared of? Is it high rates? We can fix that. No down payment, we can fix that. Don't think there's a loan program, we can fix that. So anyway, there's ways to work around it and really at any age be able to buy a house.
I want to dive into your philosophy on entrepreneurship, because you went from a teacher, photographer, successful business, broke your neck, real estate, and then now you have 10 employees under you and you're growing still. I want to know the qualities or your philosophy for achieving that.
That's a good question. So just straight up, I will say one thing. I think people are born with a one-cylinder putt-putt or a V8. And people have an innate energy level. People have an innate desire. You can stoke it. You can give them systems. But, looking at the people that I bring along, I'm looking for somebody with a spark, with some energy, with some positive energy, with some drive, and I look at that past performance. Like, I made something, I was making 10X as a photographer than I was as a fourth grade teacher. And I thought of it as a side hustle. I was making 30 grand a month just in early 2000s, which was a a lot of money back then.
Yeah, that's great.
Just shooting weddings all weekend, right? And making $2,500 a month as a teacher. I don't know where that came from, but I had that will. And then when we lost everything and I completely pivoted, I had that desire. And I mean, a lot of that too, I had a brand new baby and a wife and a 3-year-old and 4-year-old when we moved here. And I had to do it. I think there's something compelling when you're pushed into a corner and you have to do something. And like I said, the missing element there, I would say, teaching grit. I guess it's one of the things I struggle with our kids, and they both have it. They've been raised with a little more privilege than other kids, but they're not spoiled. They don't ask for a bunch of stuff, but they've had a nice life. We traveled to Europe. We have a house there. We have a nice house here. We have investments. I share with them the financial parts of what we're doing because I think that's important. But my concern was, how do you teach them grit? And I think, because I've worked since I was 12, I've always had a job. Paid for my first car by the time I was 14. I learned how to change the oil on it. And like my parents, I was middle class, but my parents gave me nothing. Like other than we'd take vacations, everything I had to earn myself. And so I'm like, that's how I was brought up. I don't know how to compel that or grow that in my kids. So I think and also I don't remember studying I went to private school, but I don't remember studying the way they do. I mean, all the AP classes, and I don't know how you have time to do anything. So neither of them has worked outside of school. But my son plays soccer. He's center mid. He's at Westlake varsity, and he's just super level-headed, super hardworking. So I think team sports is essential. My daughter was in ballet. She's incredibly hardworking, did that for a decade. She was at Ballet Austin. So what I look for is someone that's got an engine. It can be taught. I think sports can bring that out. I'm a big believer in team sports for kids. I think it's a good training ground. It certainly changed me from kind of a nerdy bookworm who was very shy in elementary and middle school. And then I got into football and I'm like, oh, I kind of like running full steam at people and knocking them down. And these guys are boneheads, but we all joke around and, and give each other shit. And it opened me up. And then waiting tables was another one, like, dealing with cranky people and nice people, living in a bus, like all these things besides college. College was fine. I've always read books. It wasn't so I don't feel like that filled a gap. I think that struggle, coming back with resilience, having positivity, and just waking up with the fire in your belly to like do something productive. And once again, I don't know how to train that. I know how to identify it in people. And so I bring along people, whatever their background is, that have that energy that I can spot. Because you can see that in people. You can meet somebody in 5 minutes and go, man, that person's a pistol. Like they're fun and they're gonna be excited to get up in the morning and do something. Not always right. Maybe that's just a personality piece, but they don't have the work ethic. But oftentimes that goes hand in hand where you've got that innate energy. And so I don't know how that translates into a philosophy, but it's figuring out the grit and the baseline, and then just waking up every day going.
It kind of sounds like to me you're looking for people that they sail their own ship. They they've had life experiences, and you can tell they're like captain of the ship and they're leading the way. And so you're like, I'll take you on because I can see if that's something you want, you're going to go through it, whatever storm comes at you. You've been around Elon and Tesla a lot. I feel like that's a similar philosophy. They don't necessarily care if you have a certain degree. And I think more and more with all these goofball degrees coming out. I saw this clip the other day and it was like,
Saw the same one.
it was so funny. Do you remember some of them?
Yeah, it was like they were interviewing all these people graduating from a college, and they're all stating their degrees, and they're like, "I have a degree in," I can't even remember them. It was just like made up stuff.
Didn't he make it was a bunch of words together like social realization of understanding feelings in African studies of knitting or something like insane that makes no sense. And they're all like, "Yay!" Everyone in the comments is like, "What the absolute fuck are you going to do?
What
with that?"
job is that?
No kidding. In the meantime, actually, I had a little bit to do with bringing in an engineer who, at an electric expo that we were hosting, there was a 16-year-old kid who had built his own electric motorcycle. Well, without even a high school degree, the guy is working as an engineer at Tesla with no formal education. Like, that's the shit that Elon looks for. Like, the ability to be self-taught and be a go-getter and a self-starter. Once again, I don't know how to teach that. I know how I try to identify it in people, and it's exciting to be around those people. Like, I get stoked being around people that are killing it. And, I think for me personally, creating a community here in Austin of really good friends that I've created. We have a walking group in the morning where most of our guys are in our 50s. We walk 5 miles a day around Town Lake, and it's a bunch of guys that own their time between 8 and 10, and they can do that, right? So these are founders, these are doctors, these are real estate guys. I would say probably 8/10 of those guys are much better off than we are. And I love it. It inspires me. I love hearing how people make money, are successful, what they do with that. I mean, it's fascinating. It's part of my line of work. I get to meet people and almost interview them when I'm helping them buy and sell. And I love hanging around with successful people that are also generous with their time and enjoy the camaraderie. And it's not a braggy group or anything. They're just badasses doing crazy stuff. And people at that level can smell envy and people that are like, oh, what do these people do to make money? And because I think people grow up with these ideas of money is the root of all evil, right? It's like, no, money's a tool. And yeah, you can't buy happiness, but you can be happier if you don't have to stress all the time about everything in life and paying your rent and all these other things. So it definitely makes life easier. And I've met some of the best human beings on the planet that are the most successful, have a balanced life, have great families. Like, people think all this is mutually exclusive. It's not. And so when I find those people where I'm like, this person's a badass, they're fun, we go to music together. I had breakfast with one this morning who's starting a lithium extraction company. He's like, he's on the younger side for our group. He's in his 30s, but he's pulling lithium out of brine ponds with this new,
what's a brine pond?
Basically salty water.
Okay.
So there's enough lithium content in it. You can actually do essentially something that looks like a reverse osmosis thing and collect over obviously thousands of gallons, enough to be able to collect lithium ion dust, much cleaner than digging it out of the ground with slave labor. I mean, like, it's horrible, these conditions for mining. Well, this allows you to pull it out of salty water. So it's amazing. It's super exciting. And he's going to be a billionaire. Like, he's going to be one of the leaders in that industry. And I was hanging out this morning with a guy that, well, I can't say what he does, but he might be working with him because, anyway, long story short.
Curious. You can't say what he does.
I'm sorry.
I totally agree with you, though.
Yeah.
I've when I started training much wealthier clients who were doing big things with their own businesses, they were, coming from a middle class. My perception was completely changed. I'm like, these are some of the most kind, generous, helpful individuals that are just trying to give out into the world. And yeah, it's amazing to be around. And you get to open your mind and think about new realities. It gives you energy. It literally gives you more life.
Totally.
Yeah, money is a fuel, and it's gonna fuel whatever you are. And I've met people with no money that are assholes, and people with no money that are very nice. And people like you said, some of the most generous people I've met have been extremely wealthy, millionaires, some billionaires. And that's just because they're good people at heart. And if you have all that energy and that fuel, you can be more of a good person and keep giving it away.
It's an amplifier,
It's
right?
an amplifier.
It's an amplifier.
Yeah.
You can do more cool stuff and hang out with cooler people, more cool people.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah, it's and it's fun. And I think it's helpful to think of it as a game too, and not take it too seriously, because then you don't take your losses as personally as well.
Right.
And when you've had those losses, you're like, oh well, shit. What if it all goes away tomorrow? Yeah, I'm 52. It would suck, but I could,
You can figure it out.
You can drop me anywhere in the world and I'd probably figure it out. I'd have a job. I'd pay for housing and take care of my family. And I'd figure out something.
And that's the power of building it up.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like when you're just given money, you never got the skill set of making money. So then when you do lose it, you're kind of fucked because it was just handed to you. But when you have to, I've heard so many people say at very high levels, like, you drop me off in the middle of a town with nothing, I'll figure out how to make money again because it's a skill set that you've built. Money is just the outcome of that.
And I mean, I wake up every day, as long as I do something, I'm making money. It's just what I do.
It's funny, being a business owner is seen as the riskiest thing you can do. And so many people that are risk averse go into a career as I have friends that are accountants.
Yeah.
And that's the quote unquote safe route. And in layoffs, they get laid off. And I've had friends that as accountants couldn't find work for 6 months or more.
Yeah.
So you're right. You're 100% at the mercy of somebody else.
I'd rather bet on myself.
100%.
And what you realize too, like, you don't want to be a lone wolf, and it usually happens later oftentimes, but you guys have a great relationship oftentimes, and going through that with somebody is exciting and fun. Like, that's why I grew my team. I enjoy educating people to what I do. And I think, a lot of my friends who are doing very well, to your point, they really want to, if people ask them, if they just asked, how did you make your money? Can you teach me how to do X? These people are incredibly generous. They'll walk you through every step of how they've done everything. Can I hook you up with a mentor?
Yeah.
What space do you want to be in? I mean, an incredibly generous group of people that want everybody to be pulled up by a rising tide, right? And so, it's there's so much that you can be doing out there, depending on what you want to do, and just surrounding yourself with good community.
Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the reasons I started this walking group. I had a little bit of a heart issue a couple years ago, and I started doing this walking group just for exercise, and I needed to kind of just have a baseline, 4 or 5 miles a day. But a friend of mine said, what you created is kind of straight out of the Blue Zone. I don't know if you guys have read the Blue Zone book,
yeah,
but
totally.
Blue Zone, they've talked about before this version of the book, hey, it's the Mediterranean diet, right? Like, olive oil and all this stuff, and it's all good for you. But what they found is the more predictive factor is the community that you've built. And my wife's from Spain, and we go back every summer. And after he said that, we timed out when I went back, and I went back to this Blue Zone where people live in her village quite a long time. And I'm looking around at these dudes that are sitting around in the morning, just their friends walking by on a bike, going by on a bike, and they're giving him shit and, making fun of him. And they're sitting around playing cards at lunchtime, and it's the same ones having a glass of wine, sitting around dinner, not doing anything, hanging out. And at different ages, there's these little pods of guys that are just hanging out. And I think, in this country, when guys get together, we tend to be very purpose-driven, like, okay, we're going to get together and we're going to do this. We're going to create a company. We're going to solve this problem. We're going to do whatever. Well, what about just chilling? Women are so much better at creating community, at going out and understanding the value in going out for coffee with no agenda, just hanging out, right? Going to hang out after yoga or go out for drinks or whatever. Guys tend to be like focused on, we're going to go do this. And so the extra bit that's been amazing is we have no agenda on this walk, and it's just a bunch of dudes, in our 50s trying to stay medium dad bod fat instead of full fat, get a baseline exercise. But we have great conversations, and we've genuinely become great friends outside. I mean, I now dog sit for some of them. And I mean, these are guys that have become genuinely fantastic friends just because we get up 5 days a week with no agenda and just talk and walk and hang out. And it's something that guys just don't do. So that's been a powerful, I think, piece that I've loved adding to kind of my life. I've given me some more grounding and anchoring of that.
How did you find these guys?
Mostly past clients. A lot of my clients turned into friends. Let me think. Let's see, Dave. I would say 8 out of 10. There's about 25 of us. They're neighbors, actually. I helped start the Westlake Dads Club about 12 years ago with some of these guys. So some of them are dads from the Westlake Dads Club, which we started just because we felt like dads didn't have a place in schools, in elementary. Like, you go in there and you're one dad and there's 10 moms and you're reading to the kindergartners. But it's like, what else could dads be doing at school that, mom's got this? Like, elementary, like they run the show. There's too many volunteers. And we're like, well, the campus kind of looks like crap. Like, these maintenance guys don't power wash the north side of the limestone walls. Maybe we should get some power wash stuff on a Saturday. So we did that.
Yeah, go do some dad shit.
Like,
that's rad.
The
I love that.
landscaping, do like put some DG down. This guy owns a gardening company, and this guy owns whatever. And all of a sudden we're doing philanthropy. And then we get together and, like this Thursday, we had a poker night. And, we'll do March Madness, and we'll have fun, have philanthropy. And so we started this with about 10 of us 12 years ago, and it's grown from elementary into something bigger. So some of them are from that group, and some of them are past clients, and then some of them are just friends of friends. And like I said, we're all kind of a certain age where we're not doing 9-to-5 stuff, and we have a little more freedom. So it's a really eclectic, fun group of guys. And we just, we have a text group where it's like, okay, dumbasses, get off your butts. Let's go. We're doing it early today. We're not doing 8:30 start. We're doing 7:30, and there's shit given. And it's really fun. And then a lot of us, I can't make it to these. I've got tickets for whatever. Anybody want to grab tickets for this concert? And so it's like, it's become just a fun friend group and a kind of shit talking text chain that we're all on. So anyway,
I think
fun.
For my own journey as a human being and an entrepreneur, I've always been super resistant to being in communities. Might be partly growing up in Seattle, everyone's recluse in general.
Okay.
But being in Austin, trying to force myself to be in these communities, because I understand the power of just having connections and giving openly and just being in an environment where there's like-minded people, and getting rid of that, like, I'm competing against you, and letting that go. It ripples into your life in so many different ways, and your business, but your health and well-being. So I think it's a genius idea. I see all these run clubs all the time. Mm-hmm. I want to burn them all. I think walking club is the next.
Yeah, I'm not going to run with you, but I will
walking club, that's genius, because it's so good on the body. You're not fucking your joints up. You get it in a nice flow. It's walking so good for you.
Yeah, no.
And honestly, Brent and I are 50-year-old men at heart, so we're really on board.
Well, you can join. You can join the old crew if you want to. Any day.
Sounds great.
We start at Merit Coffee over at Seaholm, and we usually hang out for the stragglers for 15 or so minutes, grab a coffee, and then walk the dogs and, stop at some dog parks. And, we're in our 50s, so, we all got like 20, 30-minute bladders, so we know all the spots to stop and pee along.
Yeah, sweet.
Along
kind of guy, dude. I also have the bladder of a small child. This is perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you guys will fit right in. It'll be fun. But you should join. It's a good group. Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna.
Yeah, definitely, we're coming.
Yeah, cool, nice. Yeah, it's been impactful, and I certainly don't have balance and perfect life or anything, but slowly maturing. At 52, I'm finally maturing, I guess, and figuring out how to get some balance in my life.
Yeah. And then tell me about this Tesla club. I'm so curious how this got started and
sure.
Why?
Yeah, so I followed Tesla since the Roadster came out. Didn't want to plunk down 150,000 back in 05 when I was doing photography, and I made okay money, but not enough to just buy a random car, but loved the idea. And then he came up with the Blue Star concept, which turned into the Model S, right? And so about 2012, they started the first very beginning deliveries, and I saw YouTube, and I'm like, oh my God, that car's beautiful. I had initially been on the order list in 09, and then I pulled my name off because I'm like, it's unproven concept. Let's wait and see how it gets to production. So in 2012 fall, I put my name down for a Model S. And I'd never bought a new car. I hate depreciating assets. I love appreciating. I throw all our money and just put it all forward on investments. Can't stand depreciating assets. So I've had like 30, 40 cars, all, Porsches and all kinds of fun cars. But I like them, 3 or 4 years old after they've taken 50% depreciation. Then I beat the crap out of them, and then I sell them to somebody else. And this was a new car. There was no used Tesla. So I'm like, God damn, I'm going to have to buy a fucking Tesla at full retail. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do the $56,000, version. I'm like, I need a longer battery. Because there was about a 2-3 month gap where you can reconfigure online and that you haven't finalized your order. By the time I got done, if I'm going to go 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds, I should go 4 seconds.
That's how they get you.
Well, I kind of should get the Alcantara interior.
Well, you have to get
and I got to do the rear-facing jump seats. And like, by the time I got done, I checked every goddamn box. And my $58,000, $57,000 car gone to 120. And I'm sitting there going, this is insane. I could buy a house for this. This is nuts. I'm just going to like swipe and put my card information in, and 120,000 goes away. This is so dumb. So I'm literally the finalization of the order I had to pay in full, because there was no vehicle either for financing at the time. I had to refinance it when it came in because anyway, long story short, because of the dealership rules, you had to buy it and then finance it once it got here. And so I'm sitting at the computer and I'm like, this is so dumb. And my wife, to her credit, she's like, honey, you deserve this. You've never had a new car. You love this. You've watched 1,000 YouTube videos. She's like, click the button. And I think she may have even clicked the button for me to like buy it. I'm like, oh shit, it's happened.
Yeah.
So the car came in March of 2013. 2013. And about a week after I'd gotten it, and by the way, it exceeded expectations. My daily driver had been a 911 Turbo at that point, my dream car. I loved it. The family loved it. So there's a cabriolet, like put little kids' little butts in the back seat, and we just cruise around as a family with the top down. It was awesome. Didn't think I ever wanted any other car. Love Porsche, huge Porsche guy. Anyway, so Tesla invited us, said, hey, Elon's going to be in town. We're trying to push for legalization of direct sales of Teslas. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, if you can be at the Capitol on this date, and if you can get there at 6 o'clock in the morning and give rides to the press, that'd be awesome. So I get up at 5 o'clock and get down there, and I end up getting interviewed on a number of channels, taking them out, and I'm super enthusiastic. I'm like, this car's amazing. Like, I love it even more than my Porsche, and it's going to change the world, and it's incredible, and there's no maintenance, and I'm just blah, 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 proselytizing. And so then we go in, and we're supposed to have this testimony to give to these senators to be able to push through this legalization. And people ask all the time, like, why wasn't there legal direct sales for Tesla? And why did he want them? And so the problem is, if you have a dealer, you have a 20% markup probably that you're going to have to pay. So the cars were already rather expensive. If you had another 20% premium, it was going to get tough. He's like, let me just sell directly to the public. Well, back post World War II, before that, in the Depression, the bigger auto manufacturers decided that they were going to have franchises open up and sell them because they just didn't have resources to sell directly to the public. So then these franchise guys stepped in. Well, then post World War II, the car boom in the 1950s, all of a sudden Ford and GM said, hey, we don't need these franchise guys. Let's just go open up our own dealership in the States. So a lot of states protected at that time who the little guy was, which was the dealer, because they had their franchise and they were protecting them from the big guys coming in and undercutting their price, which they obviously could. So these were created in a lot of states. Well, that was there to protect them against the little guys. Well, then the dealers really became the big behemoth in the room. They make their money on service. They charge markups. I mean, have you ever gone to a dealer, bought a car, and felt like you walked away going, I got an awesome deal. That was so fun. I loved my salesperson. I love spending 5 hours being talked into underpinning whatever and extra paint protection. And by the time you leave, you go, the hell was that? And did I even pay it? It wasn't even MSRP. I paid over. I mean, it's a nightmare in my estimation. So A, it's not fun. And B, Tesla really needed it to be able to keep their pricing where it was. So long story short, we sit in there and they kick the can down the road, and I sit behind Elon for 9 hours. Well, at lunchtime, he turns around. He's like, hey, I saw you on the news. My guy sent me a video. That was awesome. Thank you for doing that. Anything I can do for you? And we're like walking out for a lunch break. I'm like, can you come to my car and sign my sun visor and my license plate and like take some pictures with me? And he's like, okay. And freaking walks out. Halfway out, I'm in a shame spiral going, wow, I'm wasting this guy's time. Like, he's probably got 50 other things to do. He's got to go invent a new rocket. Like, I'm such a moron. I'm like, God damn it. But there's video somewhere on the news of him, signing pictures or signing my license plate. He's all bent down. He's signing my sun visor, and we're hanging out talking. And so after that day, and by the way, it wasn't successful for direct sales. A number of us that had met at the Capitol said, hey, let's go for drinks. Over drinks, a lot of fun stuff usually happens. And so we decide, nobody knows what these cars are. I mean, keep in mind, 2013, nobody had Teslas. Yeah. And people are like, what is that? Is it Japanese? Is it European? Like, what is this thing? It doesn't make any noise, right? And so we're like, we should do cars and coffee events. We should just take random strangers on test drives. Like, they didn't have the gallery at the open for that Tesla had. They had no sales component. It was just us. And so I probably gave 200 test drives to random strangers in like Randall's parking lots in 2013 and 14. So we started this group of people. There was like a chat group, and we just kind of grew as Teslas came in and questions about how to do this and where to charge, and kind of became an informational group. Well, 2015 rolls around and Tesla reaches out to our club, what was becoming a club, and said, hey, will you take official designation from Tesla, and you guys can you're the largest group in Central Texas. We want you to run with it, take the Tesla moniker, and we'll use you sort of as a arm of marketing, an arm of, if we need to get information out to owners, that kind of stuff. And so that became the club. And so we've grown it. There's probably 3,000 members that are active-ish across platforms, because we have like some people like Facebook and Instagram and the YouTube, and there's various ways. And we now, Cars and Coffee gets a little old, and everyone's seen a Tesla, so I don't do a lot of those now, but we do probably every quarter a big fun event. So we did the Cyber truck after party Elon, for the Cybertruck rolled out, Elon had about 800 people at the factory. And then there was exclusive invites. Ours was open to anybody that wanted to come. So we had 1,100 people at the after party, including the chief designer, Franz, and investor relations, and a bunch of people that were C-suite, and then just a bunch of crazy Tesla nerds. So we did that. Tomorrow we have a Cybertruck event. We're gathering the largest gathering of Cybertrucks in the world so far.
How many are you estimating?
We have, as of 2 hours ago, we have 75 Cybertrucks and 500 people that are coming. We've got a DJ coming who's also got an accompanying guitarist who's going to play for like 4 hours. Our friend is volunteering his 3-mile dirt track up in Waco. So we're going to take the trucks and I'm going to try to break my truck on the dirt track. I already did it once, and it's
damn, I want to go to that so bad.
And we got food, we got barbecue, we got alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks. We have like 6,000 square feet of interior space. It's kid friendly. It's going to be a blast. Once again, it goes back to fun. If it's not fun, I'm not doing it. So the parties we have are just fun. And so there's no agenda. There's no cost to this. We got about 20,000 in sponsors that are taking care of the bills on this, and people pay for their food and drink, and that's it. So we try to do events that are open to anybody that's Tesla curious or Tesla owner, and really just kind of proselytize for the brand. It's a fantastic car. It's like the Apple of cars. Like once you get in the ecosystem with Apple, you're kind of stuck, right? Same thing with Tesla. Like I've had 7 now. I've got 3 more on order. It's ridiculous. And these are, keep in mind, depreciating assets that I hate buying, but the technology keeps getting so much better. Full self-driving gets so much better. Like the reliability is amazing. Like you get so spoiled driving a worry-free car, despite all the silly FUD and news about how they break down and they're horrible. They never do. You don't have oil changes, timing belts. You charge it home and you wake up just like you do with your iPhone with a full charge every day. I go 300 miles in one day. I go home, I charge it. I wake up at 300 miles again. You know, it barely affects my electric bill. I have solar panels to offset that electric cost. And like I said, once you go down the rabbit hole, I don't think I could go back to an internal combustion engine car.